King of the Railway. It was a busy day at Brendam Docks. While Cranky hoisted heavy cargo from the waiting ships, Thomas and Percy shunted trucks. But the two engines were having too much fun and weren't paying attention. One truck bashed into Percy's buffer and tipped over. A crate fell out and split open, revealing an amazing sight. "Thomas, look!" peeped Percy. "There's a metal man! A robot!" "Silly little tank engine," grumbled Cranky. "That's not a robot. It's a suit of armor, like a knight used to wear." Just then Sir Topham Hatt arrived. "Oh dear." "Cranky's right," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Thomas and Percy, you must be more careful with your work. This armor is very old and valuable. Long ago, before there were railways, the island of Sodor was ruled by kings, and the greatest king of Sodor was the beloved King Godred. He protected the island from invaders with the help of gallant knights. He wore a golden crown." "Oh, a golden crown! I would love to have one of those again. Or at least wear one." "The ruins of King Godred's castle can still be found at Ulstead on the Earl of Sodor's estate," Sir Topham Hatt continued, "and the king's golden crown was kept on display there for many years, until it was stolen. The thieves were caught, but the crown was never seen again." "Oh dear." "Which reminds me, we have a special visitor coming to Sodor. You must all get washed and look your best for his arrival." "Oh, I wonder who it could be." The next day there was excitement all around the island. The engines were given a good wash down and a polishing. "I heard that Spencer is coming from the mainland," peeped Emily. "I hope we're not all having a wash just for Spencer," puffed James. "Of course not, Jamesy, you red engine, you." "No," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Spencer is bringing our visitor, my old friend Robert Normanby. The Earl of Sodor is coming home today after traveling the world for many years." "Oh my, it's so wonderful to have an old friend back where they live. It really warms your heart." Later, Thomas and the other engines gathered at Knapford station. They all looked their best and gleamed in the sun. The station was decorated with colorful banners and balloons. Spencer rolled up, shining and proud. A brass band played as the Earl stepped out of his coach. "What a marvelous greeting!" said the Earl. The Earl exclaimed, "Sorry." Sir Topham Hatt cleared his throat and spoke. "We are gathered here to celebrate—" "A celebration!" the Earl interrupted. "How marvelous! Carry on. I promised I'd be at my estate by 2. Enjoy your party." With that he disappeared into his coach, and Spencer puffed away. What about that? He didn't even recognize his own welcome party. How silly. To me. The next morning Thomas delivered a crate to the Earl's estate. There he saw the Earl looking at building plans for his big project. He also met Milly, the Earl's narrow-gauge engine. "I run the estate railway for the Earl," Milly peeped happily, "and she's French." The Earl eagerly opened the crate and removed the armor Thomas had seen at the docks. The Earl was pleased, but then he sighed. "If only I had King Godred's golden crown, then my plan would be complete." Of course it would. The armor was loaded onto Milly's trucks. Before Thomas could ask about the missing crown or the Earl's mysterious plans, Millie and the Earl chugged away. Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen. Over the next few days, Thomas helped take more crates and supplies to the Earl's estate. There were so many deliveries of tools, stones, wood, and rails that James and Percy had to help. Sodor's famous three. Thomas's friend Jack the Digger was also working at the estate. He's a front loader. I'm helping the Earl with his building project, puffed Jack. He's restoring Olstead Castle. So that's his plan, whistled Thomas. Thomas, Percy, and James spent the day happily shunting containers, until Thomas came upon a flatbed with a very large crate on it. The Earl said it was a special delivery for the steamworks. Percy peeped that he wanted to haul it, but James thought an important package should be delivered by a fine engine like him. Of course, Jamesy. If you're all so curious, the Earl said, maybe you should all take it. The engines were coupled to each other, and they pulled the mysterious crate together. It's much better when you work together. Hello, my friends, Victor said when they arrived at the steamworks. What is this thing in a crate that takes so many engines to deliver? A gantry crane lifted the crate and revealed an old engine named Stephen. His wood was worn and he had rust holes in his boiler. Oh dear, he hadn't turned his wheels in years. Surprise! The old engine peeped. Stephen will be helping with my project, the Earl explained. Victor said he'd have Stephen fixed up in no time. As Victor and Stephen rolled away, Thomas asked the Earl what Stephen would be doing. I have a special job for him, but it's best not to say anything yet. Okay, sir, peeped Thomas. I won't say anything. I promise. Yes, but how long will that promise last, Thomas? Knowing you, probably not very long. News of the mysterious old engine spread quickly. The next morning, many of the engines rolled down to the steamworks to see Stephen. He was suspended high in the air, hanging from a gantry crane. His wheels had been removed. What are you doing up there? Asked Henry. They're turning me into an airplane, Stephen joked. Stephen is one of the first steamies ever built, said Victor. I've been around a long time, Stephen said, laughing, and I wasn't always this rusty. Back when trains were pulled by horses, Stephen continued, I worked in the mines and on the docks, and I was lightning fast. They called me the Rocket. But you new engines are so fast and so strong, I'm not needed anymore. Oh, nonsense, Stephen. Percy asked if Stephen had ever seen knights in shining armor. Stephen laughed. I'm not that old, and I never saw dinosaurs either. Oh my, you are quite the wisecracker, aren't you, Stephen? The other engines also laughed, and Stephen told Percy not to feel bad. Asking questions is always a good way to learn new things. That is definitely true, Stephen. Victor worked quickly. Soon Stephen's funnel was straightened, and his boiler was fixed. With a fresh coat of paint, he was good as new. You look really useful again, peeped Thomas. James and Percy tooted their horns. It's supposed to say whistle, silly book. Just then, Sir Topham had arrived. James, Thomas, and Percy. The Earl of Sodor asked me if you could help him with a special job. As Thomas rolled away to work, he noticed that Stephen looked sad. Suddenly an idea flew into Thomas's funnel. He thought it must be hard for Stephen to see the other engines being really useful. Thomas told Stephen that the Earl had a special job for him, too. Thomas knew he wasn't supposed to tell, but he wanted to cheer up his new friend. Stephen was very excited and wondered what his special job could be. "Oh, Thomas, you shouldn't have done that." Thomas, James, and Percy steamed up to the Earl's estate. It looked very different. Rocks and dirt had been removed, and Ulstead Castle now towered over the land. The Earl has done so much work," peeped Thomas. "What about me?" Jack asked as he dumped a load of dirt and rocks into a troublesome truck. "I've done a lot of work too." James's face fell. "I hope the Earl doesn't want us to cart away this dirt. That wouldn't be a very special job." "Oh, of course not, Jamesy." The Earl led the engines inside the castle walls, where they were amazed to see a giant platform on rails. The Earl called it the Traveller. "The men will work on top of the Traveller and replace the roof beams," the Earl explained, "and you 3 engines will move the Traveller into place for each beam. You'll have to work carefully to keep the platform stable." "We'll do our best," peeped Thomas. Oh my. Thomas, Percy, and James had never done a job like this. The platform was very tall and a little scary. The 3 engines carefully pushed and pulled together. James inched ahead. Then Percy nudged the Traveller a little too hard. It wobbled. "Easy, Percy," huffed James, "and pay attention." "You both have to pay attention," peeped Thomas as he lurched forward, but not realizing that James and Percy weren't moving with him. The Traveller shook. Then a giant roof beam thundered to the ground. Dust covered everyone. "Is everyone all right?" asked the Earl. "I'm not," James shouted. "My paintwork is covered in dust." "Oh, poor Jamesy." They all laughed. Thomas, James, and Percy promised to be more careful, and Jack was happy to carry away the fallen rock. Of course he was. Poor James. My red wonder. Meanwhile, Stephen was eager to learn what his special job would be. Victor didn't know, so Stephen rolled down to Brendam Docks. It was very noisy there. "Out of the way, little steamy," said Diesel. "We have work to do." That dirty Diesel. "There's no work here for an engine like you," Cranky said. Oh, Cranky, really? Stephen puffed sadly away from the docks. Poor Stephen. Stephen wound his way up to the Blue Mountain Quarry. It was bigger and busier than any quarry he'd worked in before. "I'm looking for my new job," Stephen said to a narrow-gauge engine called Luke. "Ooh, Luke." "We can always use help," Luke peeped. But each truck Stephen tried to pull was just too heavy. He steamed and strained, but none would move. Oh dear. Skarloey frowned. "I don't think there's a job here for you, Stephen. When I worked in the mine, the trucks weren't this heavy," said Stephen. "Are there any mines around here?" Skarloey thought for a moment. "There's an old mine near the castle ruins, but I don't think anyone works there now. I'm on a quest, like the knights in olden times," thought Stephen as he pulled away to search for the mine. Stephen puffed to a slope below the castle grounds and rolled through some overgrown grass. He found the entrance to the mine, but it was boarded up. No one had worked there in years. There's a lot of abandoned mines on Sodor, isn't there? The other engines are right, he sighed. I'm too slow, old, and weak. There's no job on this island for me. Poor Stephen. Of course there's a job for you. Meanwhile, at the top of the same slope, Thomas prepared to haul away dirt in the troublesome trucks. Suddenly the truck slipped loose and roared down the hill. Thomas didn't know it, but they were headed right towards Stephen. Stephen had no choice but to push into the abandoned mine. His funnel struck the roof and rocks crashed down behind him, sealing up the entrance. Thomas retrieved the trucks, not knowing that Stephen was trapped in the mine. Oh dear, first Thomas, then Duncan, and now Stephen. Who else can get trapped in a mine? Ulstead Castle's grand reopening was just a day away, and the island of Sodor was buzzing with excitement. Visitors hurried from the mainland to be part of the festivities. 2 special engines named Connor and Caitlin were brought over to help carry the extra passengers. Oh. With all the activity, only Thomas noticed that Stephen was missing. Oh dear. Thomas went to the steamworks to ask about Stephen, and Victor told him that Stephen had left the day before to find his new job. But he didn't know what his new job was. Thomas peeped. He felt responsible. If he hadn't mentioned the job, Stephen wouldn't be missing. Oh dear, Thomas, when will you ever learn? Thomas steamed to the sheds and chugged to the shunting yard. He rolled down to the docks and up to the quarry. There was no sign of Stephen. While Thomas raced around the island, Stephen was still in the mine, searching for a way out. He crept around the dark bends and through empty tunnels, but the tracks just led him in circles. The only thing he found was an old wooden crate. Stephen's lamp was flickering, and his boiler was almost dry. He couldn't turn his wheels another inch. Oh dear, oh no, oh dear, oh no. Thomas returned to the shed and asked the other engines to help. Let's get those boilers bubbling and find our friend Stephen, he puffed. Sir Topham had protested. I have a railway to run. Honestly, Sir Topham, I hope he's not like this in an upcoming new Thomas movie, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. I really hope not. Just then the Earl drove up in a panic. I need Stephen for the opening of Ulstead Castle tomorrow. Sir Topham had agreed to let Thomas and Percy search for Stephen, and they quickly chugged off. Thomas and Percy searched every yard, station, and tunnel. Thomas was about to give up when Percy saw an overgrown track at the bottom of a hill near Ulstead Castle. Maybe we should check down there, he peeped. He's not there, Thomas replied. That's the track to the old mine. We went down there when the troublesome trucks ran away. But Thomas looked anyway. He saw something familiar lying on the ground. It was Stephen's funnel. They found him at last. As quickly as his pistons could pump, Thomas chuffed up to the castle to get Jack the Digger. Front loader. Then, when they returned, Jack started hauling rocks away from the mine entrance. As soon as it was clear, Thomas turned on his lamp and raced into the dark mine. The old track creaked under his weight. Stephen! Stephen! he peeped. Stephen heard Thomas coming his way. He wanted to call out, but he was too weak. He had no steam. He couldn't move, or even whistle. Finally, Thomas turned a corner, and the beam from his lamp revealed a welcome sight. "Stephen!" Thomas peeped. "I've come to get you out of here." "Really?" Stephen said, trying to sound cheerful. "I was thinking of taking up mining again." "Oh, Stephen, you clown." "In a good way." Thomas was coupled to Stephen and carefully pushed him out of the dark mine. Percy and Jack were relieved to see that Stephen was safe. Even the Earl was there. "Oh, sir," said Stephen, "I found something in the mine that might be of interest to you. There's a big wooden chest." "Wonderful!" the Earl exclaimed. "But first we must get you ready for tomorrow. You are a very important engine with a special job to do." The Earl went into the mine to find the crate, and Stephen was quickly shunted to the steamworks for repairs. Things are becoming all right after all, of course. The next day, an excited crowd gathered around Ulfstead Castle. Percy was thrilled to see that the metal man was also there, and moving. He clanked up to the podium and lifted his mask. It was the Earl. "Ladies and gentlemen, engines and coaches, welcome to Ulfstead Castle. There is still work to do, but we'll soon restore King Godric's castle to its former glory. Now let me introduce my special steam engine, Stephen. He and Mary will be more than happy to show you the grounds." Stephen rolled into view. His new funnel glittered like gold. It reminded Thomas of something. But what? Ooh, it's a mystery. "Most importantly," the Earl said, "Stephen has found something that I thought was lost forever." The Earl opened the old chest that Stephen had found in the mine. Inside was the golden crown. "King Godric's long-lost crown," he announced. "Oh, he found the crown! How wonderful!" The crowd gasped. "It will be returned to the castle and kept on display for all to see." Then Thomas realized what Stephen's funnel looked like. A crown! He blew his whistle. The other engines joined in and cheered for Stephen. He wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but he was really useful, and today he was a king. The end. Well, what a story that one was. And let me tell you the things I liked about it. James, how he got a really big role in it. Oh, he's one of my favorites. Well, he's my absolute favorite, of course. Red is so popular these days. Well, and the one other thing I liked about it was the crown. I'm glad they found it. I'll have to make something like that one day. Well, this is Rarity saying, I like King of the Railway, not only because it's really good, but doesn't have too much conflict in it, and I love stories like that. Goodbye, everybody.